Okay, so what you got to do here is write this expression in terms of u and v. And you're given cosine of inverse sine u minus inverse sine cosine, or excuse me, inverse cosine v. And recognize that this right here, this inverse and this inverse over here, are just angles, alpha and beta. And that's what we'll call them for here. And so if you take the sine of that right here and take the cosine of that, you're just left with sine of alpha is equal to u over 1. We'll write for simplicity's sake, and we'll see that in a second. Cosine beta is just equal to v over 1 right here. So opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse in this case, and these are two different angles here. So this right over here, opposite over hypotenuse, u over 1, and we don't know what the other side is right here, and we can solve for that using the Pythagorean theorem. And this side, the same thing, just it's a different angle right here. So you have the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse right over here, and we need to find the opposite side in this case, and we need to find the adjacent side in that case. So all you do is take the squared version of what you have right here, squared side of that times the squared side of the unknown side right here is equal to 1 squared. Same thing on this side, except just substitute the u and x for v and y, just so you don't get them confused. It might confuse you if you're writing this on paper and you wrote x for both sides. So just keep them separated. This is beta, that's alpha, alpha, beta. So I moved the u on this side and the v on this side over to the other side, and you subtract them to do that. So you're left with x squared is equal to 1 squared minus u squared. Y squared is equal to 1 squared minus v squared. Take the square root of both sides, and you're left with x is equal to the square root of 1 minus u squared, and y is equal to the square root of 1 minus v squared. And so now that we've found what these values are, we can put them into this little formula here, I guess we'll call it. Or this sum or difference formula is what it should be called. And recognize that, again, this is just cosine of alpha minus beta. And so when you're doing that, cosine alpha, cosine beta, plus sine alpha, sine beta. These can all be found right over here. So cosine of alpha, adjacent side right here, which we found to be square root of 1 minus u squared over 1, which is the hypotenuse. So that's where that comes from right there. Cosine of beta is just v over 1, so v. Sine of alpha, going back to alpha, opposite over hypotenuse, u over 1, just u, or right there. And the sine of beta is the opposite over hypotenuse on beta, and again we found that right here. Square root of 1 minus v squared over 1. And so you're left with this right here. Just multiply these through, and you're left with v times the square root of 1 minus u plus u times the square root of 1 minus v squared. And that's your final answer.